All right, folks, this is stunning. A bombshell MAGA scandal is currently rocking the political world, and it has Donald Trump panicked and in a full-blown retreat, which is unusual for him, even as Vice President J.D. Vance attempts to smugly sweep it under the rug in vain. Take a look.
Politico obtained more than 7 months of Telegram chat messages between about a dozen young Republican leaders in New York, Kansas, Arizona, and Vermont. Now, MSNBC has not independently reviewed those messages, but what Politico published today shows the conservatives openly praising Adolf Hitler, making celebratory jokes about gas chambers and slavery and rape. For example, when the chair of Arizona Young Republicans asked if the New Yorkers in the chat were watching an NBA playoff game, New York State Republican Chair Peter Junta responded, "I'd go to the zoo if I wanted to watch monkeys play ball." We should note that when Politico asked for comment, the Arizona Young Republican chair declined. Junta claimed the release of the chat is part of, quote, a highly coordinated year-long character assassination led by an opponent, I think a kind of internecine opponent, a fellow conservative. Out of 28,000 messages obtained, Politico identified 251 bigoted epithets in the chat. There were many more outrageous examples of racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, homophobia than we could or would want to repeat here. Here's the thing. These are not we're not talking about kids here. The age limit to the group was 40. Many chat members work inside government or party politics. One's a state senator. Another works in Trump's small business administration. Politico reports that since they began making inquiries, at least 4 members of the chat have lost their jobs or had job offers rescinded.
All right, folks, so we're going to take a look at this article here, and we're going to talk about how even the article explains that Donald Trump is trying to avoid this. He doesn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, as J.D. Vance is taking the opposite approach. But this is stunning, and this report is everywhere. Everybody's talking about this. So let's jump right on in. Okay, Politico is exclusive. I love Hitler. Leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat. And again, I want you to remember this entire time, these are not Republican voters. These are not random no-name Republican people, citizens who happen to vote Republican. These are Republican leaders who occupy positions of influence and power, either at the state level or at the federal level or in party politics, okay? This shit matters. Let's take a look. Thousands of private messages reveal young Republican leaders joking about gas chamber slavery and rape. It's got some text messages here. Also, we are officially under consideration for a Trump administration endorsement. I'm ready to watch people burn now. I'd go to the zoo if I want to watch a monkey play ball. Stay in the closet, and they bleep out. It's an epithet. It's a slur to refer to gay people. They use like retarded as an insult. Wow. It's shocking. New York, leaders of young Republican groups throughout the country worried what would happen if their Telegram chat ever got leaked, but they kept typing anyway. They referred to black people as monkeys and watermelon people, and mused about putting their political opponents in gas chambers. They talked about raping their enemies and driving them to suicide, and lauded Republicans who they believed supported slavery. William Hendricks, the Kansas Young Republicans vice chair, used the words the N-word and variations of the N-word, variations of a racial slur, more than a dozen times in the chat. Bobby Walker, the vice chair of the New York State Young Republicans at the time, referred to rape as epic. Peter Junta, who at the time was the chair of the same organization, wrote in a message sent in June that, quote, everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. Junta was referring to an upcoming vote on whether he should become chair of the Young Republican National Federation, the GOP's 15,000-member political organization for Republicans between 18 and 40 years old. So even if you're 18, you're an adult, but let's say you're a young dipshit adult. 40 years old, you should have your shit together at this point. Quote, I'm going to create some of the greatest physiological torture methods known to man. We only want true believers, he continued. 2 members of the chat responded. When do we start bullying, dude? We have a solid 3 people who can probably have them want to jump. If they vote for us, why would they be gassed? When do we bring that side out? We only want true believers. Can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fit the Hitler aesthetic. I'm ready to watch people burn now. We got to pretend that we like them. Hey, come on in, take a nice shower and relax. Boom, they're dead. Unbelievable. Quote, I'm ready to watch these people burn now, Annie Kate, New York's National Committee member, said. The exchange is part of a trove of Telegram chats obtained by Politico and spanning more than 7 months of messages among young Republican leaders in New York, Kansas, Arizona, and Vermont. The chat offers an unfiltered look at how a new generation of GOP activists talk when they think no one is listening. Since Politico began making inquiries, one member of the group is no longer employed at their job, and another job's offer was rescinded. Prominent New York Republicans, including Representative Elise Stefanik and State Minority Leader Rob Ortt, have denounced the chat. And festering resentments among young Republicans have now turned to public recriminations, including allegations of character assassination and extortion. The 2,900 pages of chat shared among a dozen millennial and Gen Z Republicans between early January and mid-August chronicle their campaign to seize control of the National Young Republican Organization on a hardline pro-Donald Trump platform. And again, we'll get into Trump's response because Politico reached out to Trump to get a reaction from this, and it's not good, okay? Many of the chat members already work inside government or party politics, and one serves as a state senator. So again, I have to drive this home. These are not random Republicans. These aren't even conservative commentators, per se. These are people who actually wield power within the party or in their particular level of government. Together, these messages reveal a culture where racist, anti-Semitic, and violent rhetoric circulate freely, and where the Trump-era loosening of political norms has made such talk feel less taboo among those positioning themselves as the party's next leaders. And that's the other thing to consider. So these are already Republican leaders, but they're people positioning themselves to take the place of Mike Johnson and Donald Trump and John Thune and J.D. Vance, right? This is supposed to be the next generation. Quote, the more the political atmosphere is open and liberating, like it has been with the emergence of Trump and more right-wing GOP even before him, it opens up young people and older people to telling racist jokes, making racist commentaries in private and public, said Joe Fegan, a Texas A&M sociology professor who has studied racism for the last 60 years. He's also concerned the words would be applied to public policy. Quote, it's chilling, of course, because they will act on these views. The dynamic of easy racism and casual cruelty played out often in dark, vivid fashion inside the chats where campaign talk and party gossip blurred into streams of slurs and violent fantasies. The group chat members spoke freely about pressure to cow to Trump and avoid being called a rhino, the love of Nazis within their party's right wing, and the president's alleged work to suppress documents related to the wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein's child sex crimes. Quote, Trump's too busy burning the Epstein files, said Alex Dwyer, chair of the Kansas Young Republicans, wrote in one instance. Dwyer and Catenay declined to comment. Maligno and Hendricks did not return requests for comment, but some in the chat did respond publicly. Junta claimed the release of the chat is part of a, quote, highly coordinated year-long character assassination led by Gavin Wax and the New York City Young Republican Club, an allusion to a once-obscured internecine war that has now spilled out into the open. Quote, these logs were sourced by way of extortion and provided to Politico by the very same people who are conspiring against me, he said. Quote, what's most disheartening is that despite my unwavering support of Donald Trump since 2016, rogue members of his administration, including Gavin Wax, have participated in this conspiracy to ruin me publicly simply because I challenged them privately. Wax, a staffer in Trump's State Department, formerly led the New York Young Republican Club, a separate city-based group that's at odds with the state organization, the New York State Young Republicans. He declined to comment. Despite his allusions to infighting, Junta still apologized. So, let's get into some of the reaction from Donald Trump, because it go down here. Again, Trump doesn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. Liz Houston, a White House spokesperson, rejected the idea that Trump's rhetoric had anything to do with the chat members' language. Quote, only an activist, left-wing reporter would desperately try to tie Donald Trump with a story about a random group chat he has no affiliation with, while failing to mention the dangerous smears coming from Democrat politicians who have fantasized about murdering their opponent and calling Republicans Nazis and fascists, she said. Quote, no one has been subjected to more vicious rhetoric and violence than President Trump and his supporters. Junta tells his fellow Republicans that he spoke with the White House about an endorsement of Trump for his bid to become chairman of the National Federation. Trump and the Republican committee ultimately decided to stay neutral in the race. Now, again, the comment for this, or the context for this, is Trump's panicking because these are people who support him. And these are people who have felt liberated by his approach to aggressive, hostile rhetoric, right? The idea that Donald Trump is so indecorous, so uncivil, so undignified, so cruel, has permeated down, it's trickled down. It's not just confined to Trump himself, which would be bad enough given that he's the most powerful and important person on earth, but it's an attitude which has pervaded the party. That's the problem with this. That's why Trump is upset about this. Now, in response, J.D. Vance is taking the opposite approach, right? Trump is trying to hide, no comment. How dare you even insinuate that we have anything to do with this? This is, again, you would think that Trump would just bulldoze ahead. No, he's running away from this. J.D. Vance, on the other hand, is going out of his way to, I would argue, pour gasoline on the fire. College group chat. J.D. Vance dismisses pearl clutching over young Republicans' leak to attack Jay Jones. So he says, this is far worse than anything ever said in a college group chat, and the guy who said it could become the AG of Virginia. I refuse to join the pearl clutching when powerful people call for political violence. And he's referring to Jay Jones, who did indeed say an unhinged thing in a text message, okay, he should withdraw from his race. He should not be the Virginia Attorney General, okay? But the point is this, whereas Jay Jones has been condemned, and whereas Jay Jones, his rhetoric about violence against Republicans is not reflected by Barack Obama or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton, the actual, or Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer, right? It's an outlier. It's an unaligned with the rhetoric led and used by Democratic leaders. What we're seeing from these young Republicans, the cruelty, the xenophobia, the misogyny, the racism, the vitriol, the contempt, the indecorousness, that is part and parcel of the Trump movement. That is not an outlier. That's pretty friggin' common. And J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, you would think he would say, of course, I absolutely condemn what was said by these Republican leaders. However, there's this Democratic leader, there's this Democratic candidate who may become the Attorney General of Virginia. He's also said some unhinged things. I demand Democrats condemn it, and Democrats would. But J.D. Vance isn't doing that. J.D. Vance is saying, I'm okay with Republican leaders saying and doing all this unhinged shit because there's a Democratic candidate here who, is also doing something incredibly disgusting. This is the problem, right? See, Democratic leaders will condemn political violence or hostile political rhetoric on their side unequivocally. J.D. Vance won't do that. J.D. Vance, Donald Trump's vice president, is saying, no, I'm refusing. I'm okay with that. I'm giving it a green light because of Democrats. You see the problem here? And do you see the double standard at play? This is something where Destiny, liberal commentator and liberal streamer, has been pointing out on Piers Morgan in his appearances using a very incendiary approach, but he's been making the case. Listen, when it comes to, extremist language and violent rhetoric, we should, of course, condemn it. But the problem is there's an asymmetry here, which is that Republicans won't really do that. They either ignore it or they celebrate it and then they try to sanitize it, but they demand unequivocal condemnations of violent rhetoric and political violence from their adversaries. It's a standard that they don't hold themselves to. And J.D. Vance is actually embodying that right here. He's not just some random Republican. This is the Vice President of the United States. Even Trump, at least so far, has had the sanity to basically back the hell away from this. J.D. Vance is actually trying to escalate, take it further, and say, you know what? I'm not going to run away from it. I'm going to run towards it. And I'm going to give it a green light. I'm going to give it a pass. It's no big deal. It's fine, And I refuse. And I refuse to condemn it because of this Democrat. So, folks, this is stunning. And again, if you actually look, like, this is all over the internet. Like, reactions to this are everywhere about the comments made. Kathy Hochul's weighed in on it. She's the governor of New York. Chuck Schumer has weighed in on this as well. I mean, this is just lighting up a storm because it's indicative of what's at the heart of the MAGA movement. And that's why Donald Trump is panicked, and that's why Donald Trump is running away from it. J.D. Vance is taking a different approach, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes, but it's also an indictment that J.D. Vance feels that that's a good political strategy. J.D. Vance, who's not an idiot, he believes that the best way, that the politically savvy thing to do for the Republican Party is to run towards this and embrace it. That's also revealing and scary. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.